Oh. Hariom and greetings from Chantilly, Virginia. One of the most significant facets of our culture is education. The emphasis on education. This is especially clear in the month of July, when in our culture we celebrate Vyasa Purnima, which is a tribute to Rishi Vyasa, and how Rishi Vyasa is the one who triggered the Sadguru Shishya Parampara, the lineage of teachers and students. Education, lineage, this is all a form of role modeling. Someone who knows is sharing with someone who wants to know, needs to know. Understanding and appreciating how significant education, lineage, role modeling is in our culture, our community has initiated and is facilitating a mentorship program. Our mentorship program began in January of 2021. And during this year, we learned from ourselves. We learned about community building. And so we refined our program in 2022 with a focus on making this more active. Active amongst the mentees, the mentors. Right now, we have 60 pairs involved in our program. That's over 120 seekers. And we have around 15, I think they're called triads. Groups of 3. So you have mentees, mentors, and you have a vanaprastha, those with more experience. Many years ago, I was reading an article that was published by Northwestern University. And the essence of this article shared conversations that are shallow and clear provide less satisfaction than conversations that are deep and unclear. Do you all agree? Let me put it differently. You reading about the weather, fairly shallow and clear, versus you studying Bhagavad Gita, deep and unclear. In which do you experience more satisfaction? That which is deep, yet not clear yet. And this very much aligns with, please share with me in the chat, what are the 2 dominant qualities that we are attracted to in another person? We're proud of when we exhibit this. What 2 qualities? Please share. Yes, you're all very much in tune with this subject. It is authenticity and depth. And I'm sharing these more scientific perspectives because another significant facet in our culture, there is education, there is also samvada. Samvada means dialogue. Our education, our lineage, our role modeling is all practiced through dialogue. We've now completed a half year of our program of 2022. If you reflect on your most complex experiences this year, it had to do with relationships, correct? It wasn't about driving or cooking or presenting. It was about relationships. Most complex and so most challenging. Understanding and appreciating this is the reason why this month's workshop is focusing on deepening our dialogue. Because this is important to our culture, this is important to our life. Last month, I missed all of you. I was driving back from Pittsburgh to Niagara, so I couldn't join the workshop. This month, even though I did travel from Niagara to Chantilly, I had planned my travel around being with all of you. So here's where you all smile and say, "Aw, Vivek ji." I just want you to know how happy I am to be with all of you. For the first half of this year, I was a student in a course, and this course was on chaplaincy from a Hindu narrative. The word chaplain means someone who works in a chapel. So typically, it relates to Christianity. So I took a course in chaplaincy from a Hindu narrative. And this involved two courses. One course was Hindu spiritual care. This was 120 hours. And another course was Introduction to Spiritual Care. And this was 60 hours. The first course focused on empathy. And the second course on organizing empathy. So one is about practicing for yourself, another is on sharing with others. As I share insights into deepening our dialogue, I'm sharing this from what I've learned through these courses, from those who are doing this as their profession. I'm going to share 5 points with you. These 5 points, Rishi Patanjali calls the niyamas or do's. These are 5 do's in active listening, 5 do's in deepening your dialogue, in making your relationships less complex. You tell me what the first point is. Each of these is to be practiced serially. You all have strong relationships. You're all trained in different ways. What is the first point in deepening dialogue, in making relationships simpler? Ahimsa, you're thinking about it too technically. The first is shaucha. Shaucha in English is be organized. What this looks like is making the context conducive for dialogue. Imagine someone wants your ear, wants your time, and so you schedule this with them, and right after this, you have an important meeting to go to, or you have to leave to catch a flight. During that dialogue, where are you? Your body is there, but your ear is not there, correct? Being organized. When the context is conducive, then you're more in sync with that dialogue. Haven't you found that with talking to your aging parents? That you typically talk to them when you're physically tired, mentally tired? Then what kind of dialogue do you have? It only leads to more negativity, correct? Or if you're multitasking while in a dialogue, the context is not conducive. Be organized. This is why when I meet all of you for our one-with-ones, when do I do it? 6 a.m. It may not be conducive to you, but it's definitely conducive to me. Everyone is sleeping, no meetings, but then I can be there, right? Number 2, to be practiced serially, swadhyaya. Swadhyaya. In English, naturalize. Naturalize. This means making the content conducive. Content here particularly means the mind. To make the mind ready for a dialogue, for one's relationship. If you ask a typical motivational speaker about how they get ready before they present, they will say, take 3 deep breaths, then try to see people in their undergarments and speak. And that's so, so shallow. I speak to my parents a lot in class like that. So more is needed to naturalize. This means engaging in more self-development, like reading, writing, reflecting. That way the mind is quieter. Number 3, tapa. Tapa in English, visualize. Visualize that the dialogue you're about to have, that the person who's going to share with you wants to share with you. That you, as the listener, need to listen to them. This is critical. As someone who speaks publicly, I engage in a lot of visualization that the people I'm speaking to want to listen to me. I know that's not true, but what difference does it make to me? I visualize that people want to listen, but more so, when I am listening to others, I treat this as my seva. This is my responsibility to listen to my wife, to listen to a committee member, to listen to someone I meet randomly. Please share in the chat. What was number 1? Stick with English. What was number 1? Organized. By show of hands, how many of you feel this describes you? You do this? Some of you not only don't have your hand up, there's big denials of this. Number 2, how many of you this describes you? Number 2 is to naturalize. Okay, less hands. You gave up, gave up on organize, yes? What was number 3? Share in the chat, number 3. Visualize. Number 4, pranidhana. In Sanskrit, pranidhana. In English, empathize. Empathize. Pranidhana technically means to be devoted. What that feels like is you forget yourself. If one is devoted to a person or to a purpose, they forget about oneself. When one is engaged in a dialogue, if one wants to be authentic and deep, then matters like space and time, they become irrelevant. They go away. See how these are all connected? If you're disorganized, time doesn't go away, correct? I'm always feeling I have to do this now, I have to do this now, I have to do this now. But if you're organized, you can be one who's devoted to that dialogue. In our course, we were exploring that if you can help someone find meaning in their pain, meaning in their suffering, it becomes less painful and suffering oriented for them. I'm going to say it again. Suppose you're going through a crisis. And I empathize with you. I'm devoted to you. I've forgotten about myself. I identify with your crisis. Then it's almost like that crisis has now been spread out to two people. See how it's less heavy on you then? Don't kids do that when they do something wrong? We both did this. Even though one kid did it wrong, but we both did this. Doing this actively. But that sense of creating meaning is only possible if one is empathizing. Related to this, I was once speaking at the Cleveland Clinic, and it was at a kidney conference. Who knows how I got there, but I got there. I think maybe for the free water bottle. And there was a cancer patient there who had recovered and I think was experiencing the cancer again. And she had asked a question. And when I answered, I shared, though I'm trying to empathize with you, I do sympathize with you because I've never experienced cancer. I don't know what it means like for my kidney not to function, and so on. And after I'd shared that, another person on this panel was sharing, and he was an older man. He said, you should really tell people that you empathize with them. And I shared with him, perhaps we just have different rigors in terms of defining these terms. To empathize with someone is not a light practice. That's why pranidhana, to be devoted. So from the start, organize, naturalize, visualize, empathize, and number 5, Santosha. In English, finalize. Finalize. Santosha does mean satisfaction, contentment. The notion being, if one has practiced authenticity and depth in a dialogue, then the person you're listening to will feel more satisfied, will feel cared for, will feel loved. Haven't you felt that before when someone is actively listening to you? And even if you're not using your words, they can just sense your pain, your suffering. Don't you feel lighter then? In terms of finalizing, as this dialogue is coming to a completion, try to summarize what this person has shared with you. Say it back to them. And there's 2 implications of this. The first is, again, it shows that you care. You know, when I ask all of you, please share what I said in the chat. And when you write it, and you write it fast, or you write it in the context I want, it's inspiring to me because it shows you're listening, correct? The second implication is, in most dialogues, most relationship dialogues, people know what their problem is. And so they also know what their solution is. They need you to kind of be their mirror. And so if you can summarize it back to them, it's like they can see those problems and solutions more clearly. Now, I want to make one stipulation here between worldly relationships and divine relationships. There is a dimension of difference between a life coach and a Vedantic guru. A life coach is like the one I just described to you. They are coaching you But that doesn't mean that they know more about life than you. Insights about happiness, insights about discipline. That doesn't mean that they have those insights. They're coaching you to find solutions to your own problems. You're with me. A Vedantic guru is not there just to listen. Conversely, we are there to listen, correct? We are the ones who are to engage in Shravana, which means they're the ones who are guiding us because they're not just coaching us, they do have insights into life, into the source of happiness, into challenges with discipline. You're all feeling me. If you want to just be listened to, a life coach will suit you. But if you want to be actively guided, then one needs a Vedantic guru. So there's a distinction there. These are 5 practices in deepening one's dialogue, which makes one's relationship simpler, which makes living less challenging. I try to practice these. I have found that these practices do work. And with any subjective science, because this is not a life coach workshop, this is more along the lines of a Vedantic guru workshop. That's why I started with Rishi Vyasa. In a Vedantic guru context, this is a subjective science. What is the subject in a subjective science? You. Which means that if you don't practice this, this will always be wrong. And as soon as you practice this, you'll be like, wow, Rishi Vyasa was right. No way. And pausing here, I have a short period more with all of you before our team continues in a more dynamic way. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, you can virtually put your hand up or you can type your question in the chat. Any questions on dialogue, relationships, any of the Sanskrit or English I shared? Does anyone have better practices? And did you appreciate the sort of alliteration at the end? All of these words end in I-Z-E. For most relationships, all one needs to do is actively listen. Let most of your relationships see you as a mirror where problems and solutions are connected. Next is, if you don't know what to say, don't say anything. If you start to make things up, matters will become worse. Say nothing. And relatedly, only bring yourself into this dialogue if you are confident that that listener will be able to see themselves in you. If they can't see themselves in you, you bringing yourself up is really a subtle form of ego. I just completed teaching a kids camp. Now I have a youth camp. When I speak to them, then I use very different examples because some of those examples they can't relate to it at all. So there's no point in me saying that. Me saying that is a waste then. Makes sense? The more you know someone, the easier it is to empathize with them. However, there's a tricky part to this. Often what happens is when we know someone well, we presume we know their problem and solution. We take them for granted. So as you interact with people, do ask them lots of questions. You should say nothing but questions, but these questions should not be worldly. They should be thought-provoking questions. They should be questions that make them vulnerable. Like recently in our young adults retreat, which we missed you in, we had our fireside chats, and people love fireside chats. They're so powerful. So this week we're doing the same with our youth camp. Yes. So do get to know them, let them get to know you, and keep on asking them questions. I find this to be a very useful way to preserve your own throat. I love asking people questions, and people love talking about themselves. So it's perfect. I don't have to say anything and they keep talking. When I'm at a meal with people, instead of allowing them to ask me questions, I keep asking them questions so I can eat that. In terms of your question about when you are visualizing another's pain, especially you as a physician. So all you do is deal with pain. And we have many psychiatrists who are joining us where the pain is almost more intense because we can relate to each other mentally. What came before tapa or visualize? It was swadhyaya. I hope I said the Sanskrit word to all of you too, or naturalize. If you're going to give of yourself, you have to have enough to give, which means you have to replenish yourself. And I distinctly use the word sadhana. If you're going to be an active listener, if you're going to be a caregiver for anyone older, younger, etc., sadhana is critical to doing this well and for a long period. Any sense of burnout that is happening in terms of students, in terms of physicians and so on, my observation is because they're not engaged in sadhana. They're running on their worldly abilities. The world will take everything from you and you will burn out. But if you can keep replenishing yourself, the world can keep on taking from you and you'll keep giving. This is especially relevant because most of you are our evolving adults. This is my last point. The rest of the questions maybe will be copied, and in another session, I'll address them. So team, please make sure you copy the chat. I find with younger parents, parents who have kids that are less than 5, their whole world revolves around being a parent when they've forgotten that before they were a parent, they were a seeker. And in their minds, they justify that this is what I have to do now and this is what I have to do now. But that's just the ego that is making them worldly. A worldly person depends on the world for completion. Undoubtedly, you have to give lots to those who are younger. I experienced this intimately with 2 kids who are 5 and under. And I keep sharing with myself and I keep sharing with my wife, Sheila, how important sadhana is, or one will always be physically tired, mentally frustrated, intellectually dejected. All of you are caring people. You care for a generation above you, a generation below you. Make sure you have enough to give. That is swadhyaya, naturalize, making the content conducive. Time moves very fast when you're engaged in that which is authentic and deep. With this, I am requesting our team to continue for the rest of the workshop, and I will actively listen to them and all of you. Team?
Hi, Hariom. Thank you, Vivek ji, for that very insightful tips. I mean, I think we're all going to have to delve into our discussion about this to answer some of the remaining questions. But first, I would like to move into some survey results. So now that we are in July of our program, we have made it halfway through this year. We asked for some feedback and we got some pretty great results. So I would like to take a few minutes just to share that openly, the good and the bad, and what can we do better. So I'm going to share my screen. And I am doing this on behalf of Prem, who is unable to join us because of time right now, the time difference. He's in Europe, but he put together this incredible presentation. So let me kind of give you the highlights. 57%, or sorry, 57 people took the survey. It was a little skewed towards more mentors than mentees, but we got about 58% of active participants and at least 6 people from each of our 6 pods. So we'd like to think that's a pretty good, fairly unbiased sample. And let's see, workshop attendance. So this is something that we have been working as a team to figure out how to keep this lively and entertaining, and but more so just actually resourceful for everyone. And so the most helpful workshop that we've found was grounding stress and anxiety with Rachna and Parag, who are part of our advisory committee. And we had all these different topic suggestions. So I'm really excited about where we go for the rest of the year using some of these suggestions. For the most part, the biggest reason why we saw people were missing workshops is that it didn't fit their schedule, but during a team meeting with Vivek, he kind of thought that may have been a soft excuse. So thanks to all 50 of you who are here. We really do appreciate everyone's commitment to attending these workshops, and hope that you can find something useful just as we do. Let's see. This was the next slide that I wanted to show. Overall, 88% of people are happy with the depth of their conversations with their mentee and mentors, which is incredible. That is like so heartwarming to hear that people are having great conversations, connections, and friendships that are coming out of this. And one of the other key takeaways is that about 40% of the pairs aren't meeting on that biweekly pace. We have about 50% of people who are able to maintain that, 12% who go above and beyond, and then the rest are kind of not quite hitting that yet. But it's helpful for us to see, you know, what's an appropriate sort of guideline for us to provide our mentees and mentors. So for now, we're sticking with twice a month, 30 minutes at least per communication interaction, because we think that that's a really good pace to build on a friendship. And let's see. Resources. Overall, people are really plugged into the WhatsApp group, which is awesome. We've got people reading the Monday musings, which warms my heart. Some people with the bingo card. I would love to see some bingo card humble brags, by the way, in the WhatsApp group. Go ahead and check off what you've done so far and brag about it, because I'm really curious how we're doing halfway through the year. Overall program experience, no one voted less than a 5, which is awesome. And I believe 88% of people have rated their experience a 7 or above, which again, that's awesome. That's a great statistic that we're quite happy with. And a little shout out from Prem to me, so I'll take that. I'll humble brag about that too. Okay, some final reflections. We've got people who say that this is a perfect balance between structured and informal. We like that everyone in this group is approachable. It's a good support system, awesome community that you can really just reach out to one another within the pairs, within the pods, and then within the program. And some people were saying that they even want to increase their mentorship I guess, pull from their local communities and see if they can introduce it locally as well. So that's really cool. And then at some point, my Monday musings got a little like, I don't know, kind of vague. And we got some feedback that people want a lot more like depth and content with that. And so I'm hoping that we're pleasing the masses with the Monday musings, but I'm always down for some more direct feedback about that as well, if people have any thoughts. But that is about all I wanted to share from there.
Thank you everyone for joining. I think I can, I'll conclude, I'll chant Om once, and then folks can be on their way and have a wonderful, peaceful week. Om. how do you